So what are we famous for other than phones? We have got one of the biggest concert venues, the O2, which is the biggest and most successful entertainment venue in the world now. We also have things like gurus, which are geeks in the store. So if you've got a problem with your phone, you can see any of these gurus for free, and you don't have to be an O2 customer. We also have new products and services. For instance, location, we have these special offers for customers who are with O2 on great deals for a limited amount of time in the area where they are. And we are quite sort of keen on being the best in customer experience. So we have the lowest rate of complaints compared to all our competitors. This is per 1,000 customers compared to the other guys in the UK. So customer experience is really important for us. And going forward, I explain why. So what I want to share with you now a little bit is 3 chunks. First, why did we embark on customer-centered design? And then how did we introduce it? And then the bits that work. Because it's only now, 3 years down the line, we can actually look back and think, well, which are the bits that did work? Because not a lot of things didn't work that we tried. So briefly, why did we embark on that? Because O2 was doing quite well in terms of selling phones and tariffs, but we wanted more fans. So fans, we don't do Net Promoter Score, we do Customer Satisfaction Index, that if you like your advocates, your promoters. They're 3 times more likely to stay with us, they spend a lot more money with us over life, they buy more of our new products, they recommend us to friends and family, and they're cheaper to serve over time. So it really pays to go after these fans. That means people are really good customers and get more of them. Second reason why we did it was return on investment. So sometimes we design great customer experiences, for instance our broadband package, which wins awards, or won awards, we sold it recently, year on, but sometimes things went not so well. And this is a Joggler, which is a very interesting product ahead of its time. It's a small little tablet that was all pre-iPad. It lives in your kitchen, and you can coordinate your family life with it. You can make appointments, there's a special tariff to talk for free amongst your family members. But guess what, it's a total flop, because the experience end-to-end was a disaster. So my team was working on the Joggler and the icons and an app store and developer guidelines and all sorts. People bought this thing, tried to set it up online, failed, tried again, failed again. After 3 times, you think, I can't be bothered to bring this back to the shop. There's a lot of other things on there. So basically, we spent all this effort in little silos we heard about yesterday, and it wasn't lined up. So it's not only bad for your brand, it also really costs you money. So that's something where we thought things have to change. So a good experience is mandatory if you want to get proper return on investment on the money you spend developing things. And thirdly, we're entering new markets. So, with new digital products and services, beyond voice and just telephony, we're going into cloud services and music, health, location-based, machine-to-machine. Here you can see one of our new products to go. It's a calling app, so you can call people using Wi-Fi, voice over IP. And you can do that on your phone or, your tablet or your PC. And the good thing is that you don't have to have O2 to go on the other side. It's not like Viber. You can call anybody with that product. But we've got competition. Right, these guys are out there, they're fast, they know what they're doing. If you're slow and cumbersome as a big telecoms company, you're not going to compete. So creating a good experience is absolutely vital, otherwise your products will flop. So this is a little bit why we're doing it, get better customers, to get better return on investment, and we want to enter new markets. So how are we doing this then? Well, there's 4 elements that make up our customer-centered design. The first one was customer experience guidelines. So we had a brand promise, what O2 is all about, and we had guidelines of what it looks like on TV and in posters and the tone of voice. But we didn't have anything on experience. That was sort of left to people to work out, on an individual basis. So we created guidelines called Feels Like O2 to create a distinctly O2 experience for our customer. And it's the first time we've done this. Most people thought, I kind of get the experience thing, but what does it look like? So we explain things like you can't design the experience. You guys know that, but a lot of people don't. It sort of happens between your company and the customer. We can do research about the customer, and you can build your systems. And then we distilled the brand O2 into 4 experience principles: fresh, helpful, trusted, and personal. And we had to explain also, say, trusted, right? How do you make trust, right? We wanted to make our experience feel trusted. So we've then worked out, we did that with Engine actually, with Joe, but I think he left. If you were 100% honest and you give the customer control, and if you do the right thing, generally what you're doing, and you're sustainable, then you build up trust with the customer. We had to really drill down these sort of attributes and behaviors. How do you make fresh? How do you make helpful and trusted? And then we drilled down even deeper. We said, okay, 100% honest, what does that mean? Because if you work in marketing, we sit in marketing and strategy. And the marketing guys are great for, oh, it's unlimited minutes. And then in small print, it's 1,000 minutes, but it's sort of unlimited really, isn't it? Can't really do that. You have to be absolutely straight with the customer. We also said to them, look, are there any small catches or prints? And in the end, perception of the reality. So we said, doesn't matter what you think, it depends what the customer thinks. You think it's honest, but do go and check with customers if they think it's the same. And we put in best practice, for instance, for John Lewis, that we found at the time. So people say, oh, that's great, we get that. Great guidelines, but how do we make it? How do we build this? So we had an old process, typical technology process, very linear. You've got an idea, you write down those requirements, 70 pages of Word in terms of requirements, and then you spend all your money building it. It's a bit like building a house. You just write it all in script. As you know, as designers, there's nothing like making models and drawings. And that's how we ended up with places like the Joggler. Somebody lists all the requirements, procured the cheapest supplier, got the thing built, and then, oh dear, it doesn't work. So what we suggested then, being designers, we said, okay, we need a design process. Because designers, they start with the customer, designers ambassador. They try stuff, they make prototypes, and they iterate. Fail early, learn fast. So this is what it now looks like. It's a new process, 5 steps. You come up with a vision, and you crystallize it, then you have to prove it, that it works, and then you spend the big money with build. So crystallize was new. We had to introduce a whole new phase in the company where we have a small team that works out what is it we're trying to do, what's the experience, and then start with the customer and not just with technology or the money. Then improve is you get more resources, you get more funding, and then you can build the first time and evaluate and procure the right suppliers. And then you spend the money. And by then you can build faster and cheaper. And also launching, a bit like Joggler. The challenge was, here's an idea, and then we book the television slot. So you've got 6 months to get this done. And, that's not the way to do stuff. You need to iterate, work it out. If it doesn't work, to perfect it before you go on TV and shout. We had to collaborate big time because we were on a small team. We had our little process, we had these cool guidelines. Well, it's a big company, it's 11,000 employees. So making them change tech is difficult. And that's the sort of grit thing I think that Joel mentioned yesterday. You really have to roll up the sleeves and work your way around this whole entity to convince people bit by bit, and that's why it's taken 3 years. So we were sitting in marketing and strategy as a small team. We went around to look for allies, and the operations guys, the engineers, were actually our closest ones. Because engineers like making nice and good stuff. They don't want to just be chased by TV guidelines and chuck this stuff out. And also we had little islands of people across the whole business who helped us work this out. We then finally got 2 sponsors, and that was key, really. We got 2 board sponsors who said, yes, company should adopt this new process, let's give it a go. And they were quite bold and said, we'll do this one process for everybody from the 1st of January. So all 11,000 people had to work from 1st of January on this thing. So what we did is we didn't perfect it in a small area. We sort of did this strawman and then stretched it with loads of holes over the whole company. So we did acknowledge there were holes, but I think it's the right thing to do. If you do it in an area only, then you stay local in this area. And all the guys in different parts of business, they're doing something different. So we said, okay, we stretch over everybody and we fix the holes later on. The third element of the 4 that make up customer-centered design is solid governance, because customer experience was a bit of a hobby. You had to do it. It was the business guys, the P&Ls, who had to balance, their budget and their timeline and the customer experience. And guess what? When push comes to shove, with the money and the timeline, the experience had to, I'm afraid I haven't got time for this now. So what we had is we introduced a customer experience board. And that makes decisions at each gate, look at the customer experience of these big projects and say, look, is that good enough? Can we help you? So we have senior reps from all parts of the business on there, because like the guys front line who have to deliver and live with this thing later. It's got engaged on all the big projects that go out to tweak the needle on the customer, and it's hardwired into the IT system, which means you can't, bypass it. You have to go through the big project, have to go and see the customer experience board and get help. But it's not just the bad police who says, oh, we can't do this. We do help a lot. We say, look, talk to these guys. We can do user testing for you. Have you checked this with your clients? Oh, no, we haven't. And the last one is tools and training. So the whole lot, you can't just do top-down, please guys, do customer experience, you must do so-and-so. We build all these elements at the bottom and share some of those with you. One was the process. So the old process was 70 pages. I keep saying 70 pages, probably a bit different. But anyways, it's just a document full of jargon and acronyms and tech speak that only the operations guys would know about, right? It was a black art. We condensed that down to 5 pages. So we had 1 page per step in the process. And there on the left, you can see this is what you need to do in a nutshell. Obviously, there's more levels behind that. But at least we printed that up and gave it to everybody and said, oh yeah, process isn't like a dirty word anymore. It's something like, I get this, and this looks like I could actually do it. And then the support you get in the middle, and the outputs you have to produce on the right, and then finally makes a decision. So it's a very simple guide. We designed it, we tone of voiced it, so it didn't sound like jargon anymore, and we gave it to everybody in the company. And a lot of people thought, oh, this is quite sort of, it took the fear out of process. If you go to marketing and business guys and say, oh, we have a new process, their eyes glaze over, right? And then tools and templates. You're familiar with things like personas and storyboards. And what happens a lot is designers of services design your product over here, and the business guys and the technology guys, they got their own documents, who are the real documents. What we did, we put our stuff into their real documents. So we only have one requirements document. So here you see a persona. Doesn't always look as pretty as the designer makes it, but it's in the tech document. Absolute key. Same with the vision card. People used to write down the project and vision. This is what it's all about, the technology and the money we make. No sight of the customer. So we split it out. Why would the customer want it? You tell us. And then what's in it for the business? On the left. We have an intranet site where we had to clearly define the roles and responsibility. Who's actually doing what? Because a lot of the time it was, you needed to know somebody who knew how it works to get your stuff through. And we got clinics, right? So they're turning up. You can turn up with those once a week. They're pre-booked slots, 45 minutes. If you get advice and support if you've got a problem or a project. And there's reps from across the business again to help you. So if you want to know, do I need to talk to customer experience guys on this or not? Can you help me? So it's all small stuff, but if you do 1 or 2 a week for those, and say on average we have like 5 customer experience issues we solve, over the year that's 300 little improvements. And I know the devil's moved on from the detail to the garage, but nevertheless there's still the devil in the detail that matters. And then testing with real customers. People always say, yeah, I know we should do that, but you know what, I haven't got budget and I haven't got time really. So what we did is we did 1 day user testing, quick stuff from Steve Krug. We introduced that to people with a small guide. What is it? How does it work? What's it cost? And there's an interesting quote from Ed, who had to be dragged to one of those, right? Because he's really busy delivering his big Priority Moments project. And the first time when you get a business owner into these sessions to observe the customer, they really get it, and they keep coming back. But the first time around, you have to pay. So we had to do it for them. But now they do it and they pay for it. And finally, the training. We came with a whole lot of training. We did an animation. What is this new process? E-learning, half-day course, full-day course, and the specialist classes. Just see there's Adam there. Adam's somewhere. Yeah, early days. Very interesting. So we now trained over 800 people on this process, and they're not designers. They're like business analysts and project managers, but also non-design people, so they understand what it is. And the training, they love this training. It's a bit like making prototypes in paper, Post-it notes. They have a really great time. They're probably not going to do that for their big project, but they know what it's about, and they go and get help and hire these designers to help them. So this is how we do it. And now looking back, we thought, okay, what actually works? Telling you in terms of transformation, has it worked? And I think we're sort of 50% of the journey there to creating great experiences. I think we're doing good experiences now. So the 4 things that work, let me talk you through. So first, we've gone from taking a long time to trying to build the perfect product to a more lighter approach, lighter products that get out there quickly and iterate based on customer feedback. For instance, an example, I'll give you 3 examples of these things. One is my O2 app. That's basically an app where you can check how many minutes you've got, when your next bill is coming, and all that kind of stuff. The first one took over a year to develop, and it was designed from a tech perspective. Had to have everything. Long list of requirements and then get built. And guess what? Loads of issues. It was really slow. It took up to 40 seconds for the customer because it was getting all the data in from your building system. All you wanted to know is how many minutes have I got left. And there was no static screen. There was no feedback. You didn't know was this thing doing anything. And then had really poor customer satisfaction, 2 stars. And I think it's only because it's better than nothing. So what we did, second time around, we said, okay, we'll do it a different way now. We created customer personas and journeys to really keep focus. Very iterative, constantly tested that. And we had it approved. So we launched like smaller versions, 150 people, perfected that, 200 people, and then 1,000 people, to really learn. You know what it's like. But it was important to the point yesterday. If you just ask people what would you do, it doesn't quite work. You really have to get something out there to see what they actually do. Because that gave us information to really know what people are the 4 most important things for people to check on that dashboard. So the result is we developed it faster in only 6 months. Now for an app you think that isn't very fast, but this app has to be tucked into all the billing systems, which is a complete nightmare. So it's quite quick. It was stable. We had up to 1 million downloads a week and didn't fall over. Amazing. Satisfaction went up from 2 to 4.5 stars. And cost savings compared to the old app were £1 million a month, purely saved on people using that thing versus the old one thinking, I can't be asked. So that's a lot of money. That's hundreds of thousands of calls every month to customer care. How many minutes have I got left? Second element that really works is ease of use and adoption. So we want to make sure the product is easy to use and clearly understood by the customer. And learning from the juggler, you do have to iterate and test it before you go on TV with this. So this product is international favorites. It's a calling thing. Again, it's a VoIP product. So if you say have a family in Poland, you can have you get a local number in Poland that your friends and family can ring. And you get a number or 3 numbers in the UK as well for your sister, say your brother and your mum and dad. And it only costs you 1p a minute because it goes via the internet. But trying to explain that product to the customer audience was really hard. They couldn't quite understand it. It sounded a bit too good to be true, so they wouldn't bite. And especially there's a lot of non-native English speakers. So we really had to go to town with prototypes. This balsamic, something we use a lot. It's really cheap. It's a tool you can download for I think £40. And you can mock up in a sketchy format the screens that you want to use. It's great because it doesn't look like a finished article. So even the users you use get the idea. It's just a sketch. And we tested it with the canteen staff. So they didn't have to have 3 weeks and £20,000 to get customer feedback. Just ask people in, we find people in legal and HR that really not that tech interested. So really good people to test for free. We did 1 alpha internally, then we did 2 beta, 1,000 customers and 10,000 customers. And then we went out with this. So basically these techniques really de-risk the product, and that's how you get buy-in again from the business guys. So the result is, it's been launched 3 years ago, we developed it in 3 months across 3 P&Ls, prepay, postpay and small businesses. We could charge full price from launch. Again, that's new because before that, because the products were so shaky, we'd give people 50% off sometimes for the first 3 months because it wasn't quite working. And we got 0 calls to customer service. We'd spent £100,000 on a small team sitting there ready for calls, and there were no calls. Right. Too little to trace or register on the internal system. And that was amazing, because we didn't have that before. And that convinced people, well, this is actually worth doing this desired stuff in small steps. Third one, cost savings for a better customer experience. So if you clearly understand the pain points, using service design tools, then you can mitigate the issues. So home broadband, moving house. As I say, we had a great service for home broadband once it was working. Because if you were moving, people phone us and then we didn't track them. So BT poached our customers. Customers had to call 3 to 4 times. We said, it only takes 10 days, and then 3 weeks later it wasn't still there. Customer get really fed up. And then outage, right? People are okay for about 3 days of no internet. After that, you get really angry. And inaccurate appointments, with BT engineers. So a lot of people were churning just because moving house was so bad. So what we did, we used journey mapping, right? We had a small team in Crystallize to do all this with frontline voice. And we found all the pain points. I don't have to go into that. But this, for instance, customers ring us. Dear O2, I'm moving house. Can you please make sure you transfer my line. And the next thing here is when BT sent us a disconnection notice because we didn't have access to the BT phone lines. So here's the whole journey map. You know how this stuff works. And very interesting on this one, because we've done journey mapping rather than lists of words, the budget was cut halfway through. They pulled £500,000 off the project. And only because we had this journey map, we could go and check if we remove these items we had planned, what would happen to the experience, so we could de-scope it without breaking the main bits that we were after. So we gave people a checklist in the end, so that's what we delivered. They got a dongle because it really mattered to them that they have connectivity. We made Guru TV clips on YouTube, how to set up your router, and we made sure our appointments actually match what we give people, plus some back-end stuff as well. So the result of that one was we keep more customers, we improved the customer satisfaction. We had a better agent process because they were really unhappy at having to deal with irate customers, giving them a time which they knew might be wrong. Significantly reduced the churn, reduced the calls of people complaining by 70%. And again, that's another £100,000 a month, for people who just ring in. And finally, be more customer-centric. So this is more like a sort of general point, really, because all this training and governance has made our people more aware of to think about the customer first and give them the tools for the day-to-day so they can actually create the experience and make sure it's good. Because nobody wants to create a bad experience, but without the right tools and backup from the rest of the business, if they're just asking you for deliver on time and money, what are you going to do? So here's some verbatims. Have a second to read them. So what's interesting for me is they're not design people, and there are quite a few senior people there, and they sit across the business. And that's when I realized, and these quotes come from a study I'll show you in a minute, which got published last week by Design Council, that we actually made progress, because you're so in the thick of it, in the grit, trying to do this day in, day out, you don't really know over 3 years how much impact have you made. And only when the researcher from the business school talks to our CMO says, does that work, this customer-centered design? And I say, yes, it does. You think, okay, message getting through. So to sum up what works, we get faster to market, we have easier use of adoption, we have cost savings and customer-centric culture. And only I picked 3 projects to illustrate each point. But really, you could see it worked all across the board. What we didn't do is people said, how much money have you saved doing customer-centered design at O2? We don't know, because we didn't record, probably a problem learned from that, measurement. If you don't record before you start, then you can't go back and check how much you've changed. But on the key products, you can measure, right? So very important, if you design products in your company, you try to make a case for doing design, measure how bad it is before you start, so you can then tell the story afterwards. So for the My O2 app, we've been twice as fast to market. Satisfaction gone up. We're saving over £1 million a month compared to the old app. And the head of operations is a very happy guy. Same in international favorites, 9 months to do the product. And it worked from day one with no calls. It's still very profitable. Again, very happy customer, business owner. And same with Moving House, which is voice and retail. So that was on time, despite a cut of the budget halfway through. A couple of tips, as we sort of aggregated, we tried loads, and a lot of things don't work. This is the core team who did this. You need a board sponsor, because if you don't have a board sponsor, I think it's not going to work. You need to collaborate, and what we found is always some people, the influencers are important. So those people in the business who say, yeah, well, look, it's working fine for me now in my area, but they're very important people. So we kept inviting them, and they say, oh, thanks for the invite. They're just sitting there on the fence waiting, what are you going to do? But after a while, they see it's actually worth doing, but they're not doing much. But if you ignore them, they just sabotage your efforts. And then there's the keen guys, there's people who always want to do it. Because nobody says no to customer centricity, right? It's the flavor of the month, or the decade, whatever you want to call it. So there's always people in every department who think, yeah, I really get this, I really want to do this. Have a CE governance board, and it has to be cross-company. Because we start with a small one in marketing, and operations, and all the new business guys and enterprise, they weren't part of it. And there were side side, how do you call it? You go on the side, yeah. And tools, keep it simple. You know, we have loads of cool service design tools. And guess what? A lot of them are too complicated for people. So the ones we use now is personas and journey mapping. And user testing, they're sort of key ones that really work. Put them in the business tools, because if you have your design stuff on one side and then the real project definition and requirements get collected elsewhere, then you know they get disconnected. You have to hardwire the decision making. It took us 2 years to get into this sort of electronic switchboard where we could, you know, where the project grinds to a halt from operations if we don't get consulted. Less is more, don't spread too thinly, because we tried to sort the whole company out. We had 20 projects with 4 people, and guess what? We made not a lot of big difference. There's a little bit of sprinkling across. You couldn't really tell if it was making any difference. Stop that. Just pick a few key projects and just make a difference on those. And you need time. I mean, I started this talking to Swisscom guys a few years back from DMI, and they said, oh yeah, we've done it now for 5 years. It's working quite okay. And you think 5 years? But for 3 years in now, big company, slow legacy systems, you need time to do this. We're about 50, 60% there. This is the report. It came out last week. We're one of the case studies in there. It was done, interestingly, not by it was done with the Design Council, but it's also done with the business school from Warwick. And I think it's very interesting that the business guys are now trying to measure what design can contribute. So that was not about designing stuff, that was using design as a strategic tool in the boardroom. And in these companies, you've got Barclays is in there from guy yesterday, Jaguar Land Rover, Diageo, Reckitt, O2, Speedo, and a couple of smaller companies who are like ahead in their game because they're using design strategically throughout the company, transforming it. So you can download, that's quite interesting. Yeah, and that's me done. I mean, that's in a nutshell, really, why we're doing it, and how, and the bits that we've found after we have worked. So, that's...
Thank you. Does anyone have a question for Markus? Yay, question over here. Try projecting your voice before...
Just a simple question. I was really impressed that you managed to squeeze in your how-to manual. I was impressed that you managed to squeeze your how-to manual into 5 pages. Is there any chance of getting a copy of that? I'm now trying to do a much smaller process, and I'm on 20 pages already, and I hardly started.
Can't give you a copy, but I can talk it through with you after the presentation. And you know, it's backed up by internet site, so we printed that. It was great to print something. I know it's all digital, and we all have online everything, but it's just a bit boring. So going back to old style, printing those and giving it to people was actually quite great.
Okay, question at the front here. Yeah, you can try and have mine.
You were quite consequential in describing return on investment. Did you start out planning what would be the outcome?
No, as I said, we didn't really say we want to reduce the number of changes in the end we make or how much money we spend on an average. We should have. But the company kind of had real issues, and they said, we've got to do this, right? Because I was designing products, and then I started changing tack, saying, how about we use design for the whole company? New for me. And I said, yeah, it sounds like a good idea. Okay, give it a go. And so we just got on this path. So that's why we can only track it on a project basis. But if you did it properly as a consultancy, yeah, you need to take stock what is bad and how much it's going to cost you.
Okay, I think we've got one more question at the back here.
Yeah, thank you. Great presentation. Love the approach. Really, really enjoyed it. A quick question in terms of customer journey mapping. I can see the direct sort of benefit when you're looking to improve on existing services or existing products. When you've got a whole new, or what you like to think of as a whole new product or service, do you map out the alternatives, or do you map out what you would like to achieve, or because you haven't got that baseline or before?
Oh yeah, no, you're right. But the international favourites one, where you talk abroad with VoIP, that was a totally new thing that didn't exist before. So in a way, we did map out the key use cases. You know, like I want to call over there, or I want to call them, call me back, or I have prepay, I have postpay. And then the devil's in detail working through these journeys with mock-ups saying, you know, do you understand this? For instance, we had 4 screens, and then all these people like, I don't understand this. We ended up with 8 or 9, step by step.
Sure, so it's not a map out of what is happening, but what you propose to happen.
Yeah, you design the ideal experience that you think is going to happen, the default journey, and then you try to verify that and change it if it doesn't work.
Perfect. I wish I could come on the training, I'll be honest.
You should run a module, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Markus.
Thanks, Em.